Morning, folks. There's a few of you here today. I want to thank everybody for coming this morning. Ottawa residents are frustrated and they are angry, and they have every right to be. Their lives continue to be severely impacted by unlawful and unsafe events on the city streets, in the downtown core, and in the surrounding neighborhoods. This is unacceptable. This morning, we have begun implementing a new surge and contain strategy in our downtown core based on lessons learned over the last operating cycle of the demonstrations and new intelligence gathered literally in the last 24 hours. There are three parts to this new strategy. Number one, we're deploying a surge of police officers in the downtown and the immediate neighborhoods. There will be approximately 150 additional officers dedicated to only patrolling and addressing unlawful, threatening conduct in the most impacted neighborhoods, specifically Centertown, Lower Town, and the Byward Market. This surge will include working with our city and NCR official partners to prevent unlawful and unsafe use of public spaces by demonstrators. These officers and our partners will be focused on illegal activity associated with the demonstrators. This surge will deliver a clear message to the demonstrators: the lawlessness must end. The focus of these officers will be on acts of mischief, hate, harassment, intimidation, and other threatening behaviors. The second part of the strategy will be an expansion of the hardening of the perimeter in the demonstration red zone, the immediate area of Wellington Street in front of the Parliament buildings. We will be further isolating and containing the demonstration in that red zone. The Ottawa Police Service, the City of Ottawa, and our partners will be utilizing concrete barriers, heavy equipment barricades to create no-access roadways throughout the downtown core. This includes considerations around the closing of bridges, highway off-ramps, and other roadways. Incoming protester vehicles today and throughout the weekend will be directed to designated parking zones outside of the downtown core. Illegal parking by demonstrators will result in bylaw enforcement, removal, and impound if necessary. Again, interprovincial bridges, highway off-ramps, and roads will be closed as needed as we manage and monitor the influx of vehicles and the egress of vehicles from the core. The third part of the strategy: enhanced intelligence and investigation operations. We now have secured fully national, provincial, and local intelligence agencies. We have increased ability to identify and target protesters and supporters of protesters who are funding and enabling unlawful and harmful activity by the protesters themselves. Investigative evidence-gathering teams are collecting financial, digital, vehicle registration, driver identification, insurance status, and other related evidence that will be used in prosecutions. Every unlawful act, including traffic and insurance violations, will be fully pursued, regardless of the origin, at any time in the future. The primary focus of each of these measures will be on the unlawful behavior connected to the ongoing demonstrations. This includes parallel and counter demonstrations. We strongly urge all demonstrators and those engaging with the demonstrators to act lawfully, peacefully, and respectfully. The hatred, the violence, the illegal acts that Ottawa residents and businesses have endured over the last week is unacceptable in any circumstance. The Ottawa Police Service and the City of Ottawa are bringing significantly greater resources to restore order, hold offenders to account, and protect our neighborhoods. The current demonstration in the Parliamentary Precinct Red Zone remains unresolved despite significant successes in reducing the number of trucks and demonstrators while preventing riots, injuries, or deaths. We take no solace in these operational successes to date. Our goal is to end the demonstration. The demonstrators in the red zone area remain highly organized, well-funded, extremely committed to resisting all attempts to end the demonstration safely. This remains, as it was from the beginning, an increasingly volatile and increasingly dangerous demonstration. The Ottawa Police Service continues to work with the national security agencies, the RCMP, the OPP, and other municipal police agencies. Over the last 48 hours, we've also been able to engage all three levels of government to effect a safe, timely, and lawful end to this unlawful and unacceptably dangerous demonstration. Public safety remains paramount, as does our commitment to work with all levels of government and all parts of civil society to bring this demonstration to an end. In closing, I want to reiterate what Ottawa residents have endured, what Ottawa businesses have endured, what our own service members and our partners have endured over the last week is unacceptable. And we have learned from our experience. We have gathered new evidence. We have secured new allies, and we're implementing new measures to bring this demonstration to an end. Thank you very much. I'd be pleased to take any questions you may have at this time.
Good morning, Chief. Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. I'd like to go broad first and talk about trust. Residents in Ottawa feel that the police have broken the trust. They see the police helping protesters, direct them to where they should be bringing their fuel cans of jerry cans, and they see propane tanks stockpiled near the canal, whereas the police in the past and enforcement in the past has meant that things like a lemonade stand couldn't continue. So how do you speak to residents? How do you explain and how do you ensure that trust is rebuilt now when they think that you have abandoned them?
Thank you very much for your question. And again, I take great empathy with those that have endured unacceptable violations of their ability to live and raise their families and conduct their businesses in this city, in their neighborhoods, particularly during this time, almost 2 full years into a global pandemic, with everything that everybody has suffered and endured. I have met with those business owners, I have met with the residents, I've patrolled in these streets, and I can see plainly and understand clearly the depth of frustration that they have in the police service and in society as a whole to what they find here happening today. We are doing everything we possibly can to keep them safe. We are doing more and more each day as we learn and understand the nature of this demonstration, how it is supported, funded, sustained, and committed to continuing on despite best efforts by policing partners here and across the country. We're absolutely committed to bringing this demonstration to an end. We've implemented major new efforts, 150 new officers based on the intelligence will be applied in those 3 neighborhoods most impacted, where that trust has been most impacted. 24 hours a day over the next 4 days coming through this weekend, those officers will be focused on enforcement, bringing to order and bringing to justice those who've committed disorder and unlawful acts, to support those residents and support those businesses and rebuild that shaken trust. But it will take more than the efforts of our officers to bring this demonstration to an end. And we have gathered allies and supports from all 3 levels of policing and public safety and all 3 levels of government. We are implementing new measures, and we are encouraged by the new measures that others in our ally group are considering and implementing right now as well.
And one question. Okay. Thank you. For now.
Chief Slowly, Stéphane Leclerc, Radio-Canada. Just wondering, does that mean, because you talk about enforcing bylaw, towing and impounding vehicles, what about the trucks on Wellington? Does that mean that you're going to start today removing trucks from that road and area?
Thank you very much for your question, sir. We have been enforcing the bylaws, the Provincial Offences Act, the Criminal Code. We've been reducing the number of trucks in the entire city of Ottawa, and particularly in the downtown core, including in the red zone of Wellington. The number of protesters have dropped off significantly. The number of trucks in the red zone and the surrounding neighborhoods have dropped off significantly. People have been arrested and charged. Offences have been dealt with through bylaw and provincial statutes. Evidence is being gathered. Investigations are ongoing, including the criminal investigation to the desecration of the cenotaph. That has been going on since the beginning of this demonstration and will continue on. Certainly the criminal code investigations will continue on in perpetuity. There is no statute of limitations on criminal investigations until we bring those who committed those criminal acts to justice. In regards to a timeline for when we'll remove all aspects of this demonstration, including the trucks in the red zone, I do not have a timeline now, but as I've stated before, every option is on the table. Thank you for your question, sir.
Good morning, Chief. Natalie Van Roy from CTV Ottawa. Vulnerable people feel abandoned and harassed in their own city. How did you let the protesters gain so much control?
Thank you very much for your question. I've had the opportunity in my patrols over the last week to speak with some of those vulnerable people. I can tell you it's heartbreaking. In fact, as I was parked right out front of this police station on a board briefing with my board chair in regards to where we were in the early part of the week, 2 members who live in the YMCA just on the other side of this building came by in their wheelchairs, both of them elderly, both of them clearly struggling with a range of disabilities, doing their own shopping in sub-zero temperatures. They stopped to speak with me. They expressed their frustration and their fear. They also expressed their understanding for the incredibly difficult job that we're doing and for the work that we've done to support them thus far. I understand there is a wide range of opinions around the efficacy of our efforts to date, but we've done absolutely the best we can to keep this city safe, to keep residents like that safe, the most marginalized, often the most racialized communities, as safe as we can. We need to do better. We're committed to doing better. We now have more intelligence and allies to do better, and we're implementing more and better plans. 150 officers in these neighborhoods to support people like those 2 people I spoke about. 150 officers 24/7 over the next 4 days. No matter how many trucks come into this town, those officers will remain dedicated to keeping those vulnerable members as safe as they can be and addressing unlawful and unacceptable behavior in their neighborhoods until the end of these demonstrations. That is my commitment here today. We will step up our intelligence and investigation efforts. We will hold to account not just the demonstrators, but those that fund and enable the demonstrators in any way. And we will have a hardened plan for the weekend's demonstrations, including concrete barriers, expanding that red zone, and locking down bridges, highways, and major thoroughfares to reduce the ability of vehicles and trucks to come in, and when they come in, to target them, ticket them, and remove them as best we can. Thank you very much for your question.
Chief Mackenzie Gray with CTV National News. You've spoken previously about how you think some of the protesters have guns. Is the Ottawa Police not willing to move into the protesters because you think if you do, things will turn violent?
Thank you very much for your question. To be clear, we have already made arrests involving individuals who were intending to and were bringing firearms to the nation's capital to be involved directly or indirectly in the protests. Through our partners across the country, we were able to identify one individual and interdict him before he was able to get close to the city. A firearm was seized, charges were laid, and he will face full prosecution, including potential jail time. That remains for anybody in this city or in this country or in any other country that intends to bring a firearm to a lawful protest, to engage in unlawful activity in any way. Do not bring weapons, do not bring firearms, do not come here to cause harm, do not come here to break the law. You will be held to account.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, Craig Lord from Global News. Can you clarify then, do you currently have intelligence that there are restricted firearms planned to be in the city this weekend when the protesters come?
I'm going to invite Deputy Chief Bell to provide that intelligence update for you.
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of intelligence that we have for this weekend, we are receiving information, have been tracking and working with our partners. We're anticipating between 300 to 400 trucks attempting to enter to engage in the demonstration this weekend. We also have information that indicates that there will be between 1,000 and 2,000 foot participants who will join the area of the demonstration, as well as up to 1,000 counter-protesters who have indicated a desire to come down to the area. In terms of specific intelligence that we have relating to weapons and firearms, we continue to update the city in terms of public safety advisories and conduct investigations in any sort of weapons or threat-related information that we receive. Thanks for the question.
And the last question.
Hi, Chief. It's Joanne Canello from CBC News. Chief, I'm sure a lot of people are very happy to hear there are efforts being made to stop trucks coming into the core. People have asked why that didn't happen last weekend. You've told us that was impossible, both through the charter and logistically. What's changed?
Joanne, thank you very much for the question. We cannot block off the entire city. We cannot stop anybody that wants to bring a vehicle or a conveyance into the city or walk into the city. This is the nation's capital. It's a democratic society, and we have a Charter of Rights, all of which you've stated. We did block roads. We did reduce access. We did create zones where people could park vehicles outside of the core. But the number of people, the number of vehicles, and the number of access and egress points in the city, this is the largest geographic city in the country, the second largest geographic city in North America. There is no way a police service of our size or any size could block off the entire city and stop that, even if it was legal. We're taking more steps this week. Thank you very much. We're taking more steps this week. I'm going to invite Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson to speak about the traffic plan and the hardening of the downtown core. There will be more closures. It will create more problems and traffic chaos for healthcare workers, emergency service providers, city workers, business owners, and people that want to transverse through the city. There will be a price to pay for higher security footprint. That is what we're trying to balance on a constant basis. I'll invite Deputy Chief Ferguson to add her comments.
Before you go, I just want to say, I didn't ask about the whole city. Of course, you can't bring every part in, but how come they weren't stopped trucks from coming into the core where they are now and getting hard and being difficult to remove them now?
Good morning. Bon matin à tous et à toutes. Thank you. I'll begin comments in French and then we'll switch to English. En fin de semaine dernière, plus de 8000 personnes et des milliers de camions ont pris part à la manifestation dans le centre-ville. Nous sommes parvenus à considérablement réduire ce nombre par des mesures coercitives et de patientes négociations durant la semaine. Nous savons que d'autres manifestants prévoient venir et nous tenons à leur indiquer très clairement qu'ils devraient rester chez eux. À la lumière de ce que nous avons vécu au cours de la dernière semaine, nous mettons en œuvre un éventail de mesures tactiques pour protéger les résidents d'Ottawa et prévenir d'autres activités illégales. Nous déployons toutes les ressources policières disponibles. Les résidents et les manifestants verront une hausse de nombre d'agents à l'œuvre dans les quartiers du centre-ville, et Basse-Ville et le marché-bail. Sur le terrain, ceci se traduira par 2 agents par coin de rue afin de pleinement servir contre tous les actes illégaux. Les agents ont reçu les directives de tolérance zéro en matière d'application de la loi, avec plein pouvoir de poursuivre les plus strictes sanctions disponibles pour les infractions au code de route, méfaits, crimes haineux, harcèlement, crachement, intimidation et conduite menaçante. Pour aborder la circulation qui s'en vient, nous ferons appel à des centaines de barricades de béton et de machinerie lourde pour créer des voies sans accès à travers le centre-ville et le marché-bail. La Ville d'Ottawa fera part de plus amples détails sur cette initiative plus tard dans la journée. Nous nous affairons à s'assurer une circulation fluide, mais nous fermerons les ponts interprovinciaux s'il y a lieu. Nos négociateurs ont également indiqué des zones de stationnement désignées aux organisateurs de la manifestation. Cette fin de semaine, les efforts du service de police d'Ottawa seront concentrés sur le comportement illégal lié aux manifestations et la possible arrivée en masse de manifestants. Sur le terrain, les équipes d'enquête vont continuer à recueillir et rechercher tous les éléments de preuve disponibles sur les activités illégaux. Ceci comprend la collecte de numéros de plaques, d'immatriculation, de témoignages directs, d'informations dans les médias sociaux et de preuves matérielles. À l'heure actuelle, on note un sous-signalement de certains crimes perpétrés par les manifestants. Aux résidents, merci de signaler tout comportement illégal dont vous êtes témoin ou victime. L'occupation continue de la zone parlementaire n'est toujours pas réglée. Nous collaborons avec tous nos partenaires policiers dont la GRC et la PPO, à enlever ces véhicules le plus sécuritairement et le plus vite possible. Notre première priorité est de mettre un terme à ces manifestations. Last weekend, we had over 8,000 people and thousands of trucks attend demonstrations in the downtown core. We have since made significant progress in reducing this number through enforcement and patient negotiations during the past week. We know more demonstrators plan to come and want to be very clear that they should stay home. Based on our experience over the last week, we are implementing a range of tactical measures to keep Ottawa residents safe and prevent further unlawful activity. We are deploying all available police resources. Residents and demonstrators will see a surge in on-duty officers in the downtown neighborhoods of Centertown, Lowertown, and the Byward Market. On the ground, this will represent an officer on every street corner to fully enforce all unlawful acts. Officers have received zero-tolerance enforcement directives with full authority to pursue the strictest possible punishments for traffic violations, mischief, hate crimes, harassment, spitting, intimidation, and/or menacing behavior. To address incoming traffic, we are utilizing hundreds of concrete and heavy equipment barricades to create non-access roadways throughout Centertown and the Byward Market. The City of Ottawa will further share information on this initiative later today. We are working to ensure the flow of traffic, but it may be necessary at times to close the interprovincial bridges. Our negotiators have also communicated designated parking zones to demonstration organizers. The efforts of the Ottawa Police Service this weekend will be focused on the unlawful behavior connected to the demonstrations and the possible influx of demonstrators. The ongoing occupation of the parliamentary precinct remains unresolved, and we are working with all policing partners, including the RCMP, the OPP, to remove these vehicles as safely and as quickly as possible. Our top priority is to bring these demonstrations to an end. I'll now turn it over to Deputy Chief Steve Bell, who will speak more about what to anticipate this weekend, as well as our investigative actions.
Given that you're having time for us to now just 3 more questions, please? Yeah, so Deputy Ferguson can take 2 questions. But we have questions for the chief. We have questions. I understand.
Right here. Can you answer a couple more questions? Crisis in the city. I'm sure people would like to hear from you right now.
Deputy Chief Bell will provide his information. I'll take 2 more questions.
Thank you. So as I indicated before, from the start of the convoy, we've been working with partners to gather intelligence and evidence on the ongoings of the situation. We continue to work with the RCMP, the OPP, the SQ, and the Gatineau Police to gather and disseminate real-time intelligence information that's supporting our ongoing operations. That intelligence is currently telling us the following. We can expect to see an increase in vehicular traffic to the downtown core beginning on Saturday and increasing over the weekend, with again an anticipated decline of that traffic on Monday. We're also anticipating several protesters will attend on foot to gather in the area. Our information indicates that large groups of people who are both in support of the convoy as well as opposed to them continuing to be in the city will gather in the parliamentary precinct. We anticipate that these lawful demonstrators will continue in the downtown core throughout the weekend. On-the-ground investigative teams will continue to collect and pursue all available evidence of any illegal activity. This includes the collection of license plate numbers, first-hand accounts and witness recounts, social media information, and physical evidence of any wrongdoing in the city. There is currently an underreporting of some crimes of the unlawful demonstrators. To our residents, we implore you to please respond and report any unlawful behavior that you are witnessing or a victim of. Every unlawful act, including traffic violations, will be fully pursued. In doing so, we're working closely with our policing and intelligence partners across the country. If you come to our city and commit a crime, we will investigate you, we will find you, and we will charge you. Thank you.
Is it okay if I ask my question in French?
Oui, vas-y, fais juste donner ton nom.
Parfait.
Avec qui tu es.
Roxane Trudel, Journal de Montréal. Bonjour. Dans le centre-ville, là, on voit en ce moment les manifestants qui s'installent, qui sont là pour rester. On les voit qui construisent proche de l'hôtel de ville là, des dans le fond, des structures de bas là, pour distribuer de la nourriture et tout. Là. Qu'est-ce que la police va faire à ce sujet-là? Est-ce que c'est légal pour eux de s'installer à ce point-là? Et qu'est-ce que vous prévoyez justement faire là, pour les empêcher de se sédentariser à ce point-là? Merci.
Bon, merci pour la question. Nous tentons à adresser la situation. Nous sommes au courant que ça cause de l'anxiété pour nos résidents et c'est quelque chose qui est maintenant une enquête active pour nous autres. Okay.
Thank you for taking some more questions, Chief. I just want to go back to my original question. How do you explain to residents why police are facilitating, for example, the transport of jerry cans of fuel, and why it appears that the stockpiling of fuel, which is dangerous but also allows the protesters to harden and to stay, appears to be condoned by the police?
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been, as I've said many times, and as my colleagues across the country who are managing similar demonstrations, nothing in terms of the size and the scale so far to date. We'll see what happens in the GTA on the weekend. This is an unprecedented and unusual set of circumstances. The level of organization, funding, commitment, communication, we have found at least 2 operation centers right here in the city. There are multiple operation centers across the country and internationally. Funding is coming in locally, nationally, and internationally. Supports, including legal advice, logistics support, and yes, fuel support, are coming in from all sectors and all sides. We have done absolutely our best to ensure that we cut off such supports. We isolate and contain the demonstration to the footprint that it is. We've managed to reduce that footprint over the last week, and we'll do everything we can, including the efforts you just heard from my deputies, to continue to do that. There is no facilitation of food, water, fuel, logistics, or funding by any member of this police service or any other police service that I am aware of. Let me repeat. There is no supply of food, water, fuel, logistics, or anything else that relates to enabling this demonstration by any member of the Ottawa Police Service or any other police service that I am aware of. Should that information come to me, you can be clear, as Chief of Police in this service, I will conduct a full investigation. I will use the full extent of the Police Service Act and, if relevant, the Criminal Code to pursue charges against such a member who would do that. Hopefully that answers the question.
Chief, outside of you and the mayor, I can't find anyone in the city who describes what the police has done so far as a success. There's been people counter-protesting outside of this police station right here at different points in time. So why should those counter-protesters and why should the million residents of this city think that the new measures that you're going to do today are going to change anything and that the outcomes will be any different than what they've seen before?
Thank you very much for your question. Again, I just want to reinforce the deep empathy I have for those who have suffered in any way, particularly those who have been suffering the most over the last several weeks. I will tell you that that empathy comes from a practical experience that I have in this matter as well. I, too, am a victim of a criminal offense. Death threats against me in the last 48 hours, death threats against city officials in the last 48 hours that Deputy Chief Bell and his team are investigating. While we've been handling this crisis over the last 12 days straight, working 12, 14, 18 hours a day, people like myself, councillors, and other public officials have had to look after the personal safety of themselves and their families and their homes while managing this. This is impacting everybody, and some people very directly. I have deep personal empathy for those that are suffering. We are doing everything we can to make sure we keep the city safe, every resident safe, every business safe. But this is an unprecedented demonstration that is happening here. It has connections locally, provincially, nationally, and internationally. We are literally learning lessons every day. We are getting new intelligence every day. New allies in terms of national and international security agencies are aiding us in understanding the depth and complexity, the resilience of what we're up against so we can make changes in real time. I've announced today real-time massive changes. 150 officers surging into the 3 impacted neighborhoods of Centertown, Lowertown, and the Market on a 24/7 patrol, focused on unlawful, unacceptable, violent behavior affecting those neighborhoods. We have significantly increased resources from provincial and federal sources, as well as our municipal partners, and we have new engaged allies at all 3 levels of government and across civil society. It is that combined effort that will continue the success to date that we've had. I will tell you the first question a member of the media asked me 12 days ago when it was clear that this would be a sizable demonstration coming to the nation's capital. The very first question asked of me by a member of the media, Chief, how will you stop what happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. in 2020? And I got to tell you, that was stopped. Now we've got a lot of unacceptable and unlawful activities in addition to the death, injury, and full riots that we saw south of the border a year ago in almost the same circumstances. I take no solace in that success. I learn from that, and I learn from the mistakes made. I gather more information, I gather more resources, I gather more allies, and every day we wake up and try to do it better. We need to do it better, and we will do it better. Thank you very much for your question. I think that's the 2 questions. Thank you very much,
That's it?
folks.
So, no, just walk off? Okay. Yeah, we'll get it. Okay. That's all the time we have. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. We will be taking one-on-ones with Deputy Bell and Deputy Ferguson. Alors, si vous voulez une entrevue avec l'adjoint Ferguson ou l'adjoint Bell, on va essayer de faciliter les entrevues en français avec l'adjoint Ferguson. The English ones will facilitate with Deputy Chief Bell. Thank you.